chair of the CWU's National Political Committee. A role he has held for 18 months. Okay. No? Thanks, Robbie, and thanks for the invite, and of course for you turning up tonight. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the independence part. I think that's around for you, but I will give a union view a little bit on that. So on Brexit, I won't go through the farcical situation that got us to Brexit, where the Tories feared they were going to lose the last election and then felt that getting re-elected and winning the Brexit vote would put them in good terms. But this government has been infighting for the last 2 years, just infighting amongst themselves, and all they've got to show for it in the deal is a transition period which just extends the status quo, but that is without us having a say, a backstop that they don't even want to come in, and a wish list of aims for the future, which in fact all they will do is kick that into the long grass. To sum up that shambles, it actually looks like they're not even going to get it through Parliament, not even through their own party. It's a right-wing deal, a Tory deal, that is weak on employment rights and environmental issues, but also within it, it tries to stop any progressive agenda going forward for those that might consider themselves centre or left-wing. It leaves millions of manufacturing jobs under threat, and in fact we might not ever get out of the backstop arrangement. So our union is going to be campaigning amongst MPs to vote down the current Brexit deal. But we have also been clear from the start as a union that we won't defend the status quo. Our original situation was to remain, but it was to remain with some serious changes in amongst that, because we won't defend the status quo. It's done within Europe. The European Union has done some huge damage to our own industry by opening up the postal market, which has in effect, and Robbie touched on it earlier on, it liberalised the postal market first, but then it's opened up the postal market, which has led to privatisation, and we don't have a problem with that. But what we want is that privatisation and any other company that wants to come in to have to compete on the same terms as what Raw Mill does. It's put banks ahead of people in Greece, particularly in Greece, and it's failed on the refugee crisis. So if we're in the EU, we have to be fighting to change them things. If we're going to be out of the EU, it has to be on progressive terms, not on the terms that the Tories are wanting us to accept and are currently serving up and asking us to swallow. Our union's priority would be to have a general election. So, you know, in truth, whether we're in the EU or out of the EU, the only thing that will deliver for our members is a radical government. We're not going to get that with the Tories that we've got at the moment, and we need an agenda and are fighting for an agenda for fundamental change. And a little bit later on I'll come on with what our union are doing under workers' rights. So I'll give you one stat. Under this term, under what they're proposing, the Tories have said over the next 15 years that the GDP will go down between 2 and 4%. Over the last 40 years, the amount of economy that has gone to workers' rights has gone down by 15%. Over 40 years. The workers have constantly been put under pressure. On independence, people of Scotland will have their own discussion and debates around that. But as a Welshman living in England, it's unlikely we're going to get a progressive government, so please don't leave us with the Tories. But with regards to the industries that we represent, and mainly we represent in the telecoms and postal industries, so we've expressed concerns around the costs of broadband, the costs potentially of invested in broadband, and indeed the post office network. We've got a campaign going on, you might have seen that recently. The post office, which is owned by the government, that's not privatised, the same as Royal Mail, have just announced that another 75 Crown offices, so the main offices that are run by the government, are going to be franchised to a company called WH Smith, who were just about 6 months ago, I think, were voted for the 5th year running the worst retailer on the high street. So that's the sort of company that the post office want to keep. So you're going to go from well-paid, trained jobs to people being employed on minimum wage with less services. So there are campaigns, you will see campaigns coming out on around Post Office Limited. And also we sustain the universal service, which is, you can post a letter from anywhere in the UK to anywhere in the UK at a uniform price. We wanna sustain that. So, for us as a union, the other issues that we want is radical transformation within the government, which we're hoping that we'll get for all our members. And we are affiliated to the Labour Party, and by being affiliated to the Labour Party, we have a lot of say and a lot of influence within the Labour Party. And the pledges that we've got within the Labour Party is that they will renationalise Royal Mail and give workers and the public controlling within the industry, that we will stop the franchising and the closures and set up the publicly owned and ensure that the post office become publicly owned. And within that, by the way, we are fighting, and it's part of the Labour's pledge, for a People's Post Bank. So while they're bailing out all the others and ignoring the people, investing billions of pounds in making sure that every part of the UK can get fast broadband. All of these are within the industries that we represent, and strong securities against insecure employment. And the reason that they are in the Labour manifesto is we fought to put them in the manifesto, and wherever way Scotland votes in the future, we want to make sure that the people in Scotland do get them same securities going forward, because we wouldn't want to see certain groups of members in different parts of the country under different terms under different terms and conditions. So we're also campaigning under workers' rights. The CWU have pushed the TUC into, you might have heard the term, a New Deal for Workers, and it was our union, our General Secretary, that went to the TUC and almost said, if you ain't going to do it as a collective, we're going to lead the way on that, and we held a march in London earlier this year. And it's not just a phrase. We've got what we want to aim for. So within that, what we're campaigning is, and we are calling it a New Deal for workers. And the thing that the things we are campaigning on are a action on the low pay within the UK. 6 million workers earn less than a genuine living wage, and record levels of in-work poverty under this Tory government. More and more people weekly are going into what is classed as in-work poverty, and the majority of the poverty are now actually in work. We want a £10 an hour minimum living wage. We want that now, but we're going to keep campaigning for that as a minimum. And we want better and stronger trade union rights for workers and proper collective bargaining within the workplace to stop the undercutting that we've seen within the postal industry. And when I opened up about privatisation, we've got companies that are coming into the postal industry that can pick and choose what they want to do. They might decide they only want to do the deliveries part of it. They may decide that it's done, but they can choose. We have to deliver every single day to every single household. They can pick and choose. They can do a 3-day delivery, so once every 3 days, and in fact they can pick what areas they want to go to. So where you've got big cities, which is obviously where that would help cover the cost of the overall service, they can just decide to go into the big cities and leave the rural areas alone and do it. What we're saying is that everything that going forward has to be on an even keel. We want action on insecure employment. We've got 500,000 people currently working on bogus self-employment, and they work full-time for a company just like we do, but they've classed as self-employed in order that them companies don't have to give them holiday pay, they don't have to give them sick pay, and they have to pay for everything themselves. And in some cases you would have read in the news that they even get fined if they're off sick. And these two last points that I'll finish with. We have to stop the practice of using agency work to undercut permanent jobs, permanent positions. But sorry, I've just got a message come through there. wishing me good luck when I've already started. So the last point I wanna finish on is that we wanna get into also not just the agency workers, but the 0-hour contracts and the minimum hour contracts, where you're employed for a period of time when companies know they're going to employ you for much longer than that, but should you go on annual leave, that's the pay you take with you. We want a proper living wage, and you hear these companies say it's the flexibility and it's the guarantees that people want. Well, I've spoken to many people that are on these contracts. They don't want to be on them. It's the only type of job that they can get. They don't want to be on them. It's not flexible for them. It's not good for them. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for their families. Thanks very much for listening.